2022 has brought a number of changes, one of which being how I work with Obsidian. Hello, my name is Justin with Effective, and today we're going to go through my 2022 Obsidian workflow. Before we begin, I do want to let you know that this video is brought to you by Obsidian Made Simple. This is the course that I have done in partnership with Keep Productive's Francesco D'Alessio. So if you're interested in checking out the full course, digging into the specifics about Obsidian and PKM, head on over to obsidianmadesimple.com. So over here on the screen, you can see that I have my Obsidian Vault open. And if you've seen some of my previous workflow videos, it looks a little bit different. On the left-hand side, you can see in the file management that I still have this 100 inbox. There is this new 200 life management folder, which we're not going to get to in today's video because this is an experiment for another day. 999 attachments, just want to float this one to the top so it doesn't get mixed in two. Daily notes, templates, and then here's where the organization gets a little interesting. I've got a journal folder, notes, readwise, reviews, workspace, writing, and then a home note right at the top of the directory. This is the only note in my root directory of my vault. Before we dig a little bit deeper into the organization of the Obsidian Vault that I use, let's talk about a couple of the specifics around settings for it. We'll head into settings here. You can see first with the theme that I'm using, I have the light mode picked, but I am using the Things theme by Colin Eckert. You can see I've got a few different themes installed. I cycle through these here and there, but the one that I come back to most often is the Things theme. I like the Nord color scheme. Sometimes I like different color schemes for different seasons of the year. Claire de Lune is also a nice one. Light Mode by Nick Milo is also a really fun one. There's lots of colors and a neon feel to that one, so it's just a little exciting. Minimal is also useful periodically, but I haven't used this one too much because it does make a lot of changes to the overall look and feel of Obsidian. I really like Things because it's a good mix of changing up the look and feel of the software combined with keeping the original feel but adding a little bit of flair to it. Minimal to me just goes a little bit too far for that. So I'm using the Things theme right now. As far as plugins, because I'm sure you're interested in knowing about that, core plugins that I have turned on, usually the standard fare, backlinks, command palette, daily notes, file explorer, file recovery, graph view, note composer. I do use the outline view here and there, page preview. I am not using Obsidian Publish. We'll get into that in a little bit. Quick switcher, random note, search, all the standard stuff. I do use slides here and there, starred sometimes, Obsidian Sync, the tag pane templates, and then word count and workspaces. I haven't been using workspaces as much lately myself, but here's where the interesting stuff gets, is in the community plugins. I have Advanced Tables installed. Advanced Tables is an excellent plugin if you use Markdown tables whatsoever. It makes working with them about 100 times easier. If you even use Markdown tables once per year in your Obsidian Vault, you got to have this plugin installed. Calendar plugin is also really nice to just jump into daily notes to see what daily notes I have there. Click into them. I don't really use it for the tracking of how much word writing I have done on a specific day. I used to use contextual typography for a setup that I was doing, but I don't use that now. Data view is also another great one. I'm using this as part of my life management experiment. Kanban is another one that's really, really nice. I love this plugin, and we get really in depth with it inside the Obsidian Made Simple course. So if you haven't checked out the course or that video in the course, if you're a member of it already, be sure to do so. Meta Edit is an interesting plugin by Christian Haumann. We covered that in another video on the YouTube channel, which if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll put a link up in the corner over here. He uses this for some project management, and I've been stealing some ideas from that as well. Note refactor is another good one if you need to chop a piece of a note out into a separate note and automatically link back to it. Quick add is another nice one if you need to do some macros to add notes in specific folders and add information into, say, a Kanban board. For some reason, my Readwise official plugin is turned off, but I am using Readwise's official sync for my highlights directly into this vault. Sometimes I'll use Smart Random Note, which allows me to randomize notes to surface them inside of my vault and exclude directories and such using a search term. And then Tag Wrangler, which is a great way to bulk edit your tags in your vault without having to do things like a find and replace. Because directly out of the box, these features don't exist, and Tag Wrangler adds a lot of them. Now, I did mention a couple of things. Number one being Obsidian Publish. I am not publishing my vault anymore. I did as an experiment, about a year ago or so. And I thought that was an interesting and fun thing to do. But the downside of doing that is it was kind of kludgy to keep everything in one vault, both public and private stuff. And so it just got to be a little bit too much to manage. There were notes that I didn't want to publish, and so I had to navigate around that. I had a private folder in my vault, and it just made the organization of things a little too iffy. And so I'm not using Obsidian Publish at this time, and I have no plans to do so going forward. And for sync, obviously, there are a number of different options for syncing your vault. You can use Dropbox, iCloud, Google Drive. You can use Git and Obsidian Sync. I am using Obsidian Sync because I think it is the fastest and best way to sync your vault. It's end-to-end encrypted, and that's just something I really value for something as private as a notes database that I'm keeping about even really private and personal thoughts about things. So Obsidian Sync, I think, is the best way to handle it. Looking back at organization, we've already covered some of the folder layout. I'm going to go in depth into this right now. First, we have the 100 inbox. This is where all brand new notes land inside of the vault. It allows me to work with them, finish them up, and then move them into the appropriate spot. As I mentioned, 200 life management is an experiment. We'll cover that in an upcoming video and set, so be watching for that. 999 attachments, again, is for all attachments in the vault. Daily notes, this one I have set up this way. If you haven't seen this before, but I have all the daily notes that I've created from previous years in a year folder, and then the current year just gets automatically created in the root daily notes folder. I do this so that the root daily notes folder doesn't get overly cluttered with notes from previous years. This makes it a lot easier to just jump into a note from this year if I need to. Then templates, I've got a number of templates in here. YAML front matter, an annual review template, which if you haven't checked that out, you can get at annualreviewtemplate.com. It's a free guide and free resource that we provide here at Effective. A daily note template, which is part of my experimentation, which we'll talk about more in another video with life management. Date link template, which is just an easy way to link to today's date. iframe, so I can plop this something in if, for example, if I want to embed a website such as Todoist or something like that in the vault, I can just add the source URL here and I've got it all sorted out. Literature notes, marketing assessments, which is from some of the work that I've done in marketing in the past. Meeting templates, I don't use these too much. OKRs, again, relating to life management. Permanent notes, very simple template there. Projects, seasonal review, weekly review, and then a wine template because I was trying some different wines this year. Didn't really continue too much with that experiment, but it did make it into my Obsidian vault. Journal is really where all of the personal stuff goes inside of my vault, things that are not related to notes. These are, different things that I'm thinking about personally that are not necessarily daily note material, but they're not notes that I'm taking on things externally. Notes is where the meat and potatoes of the vault is. This is where I have all of my course notes, video notes, literature notes, maps of content regarding different topic areas, some book notes, and then lots of different, speaking session notes from conferences, things of that sort. These all end up under notes. This is where permanent notes end up as well. Basically, just about anything that I create in my vault relating to something that I'm consuming externally goes in the notes folder. Readwise is where all of my Readwise highlights are synced in. And so I've got articles, books, and tweets in here so far. Reviews, this is where a couple of different things go. Every year, I do an annual review. And so then the annual review template that I use generates a note in this folder. And then I fill it out and I go through, where am I at for this year? How did this last year go? Where am I going this next year? And then the other thing that I end up doing is I have a theme for the year that I create. So you can see down here is 2022, year of rebuilding. This all belongs in my Obsidian vault because to me, it just makes sense to connect into with the thoughts and things that I am thinking through and learning because they often directly relate. Workspace is a folder where I store anything relating to work that I'm doing, things that I'm making, things that I'm creating, meeting notes that I've had that I want to keep inside of my Obsidian vault. And then writing is writing that I'm doing for these videos. Maybe I'm writing a newsletter or a tweet thread or something of that sort. If I want to do writing, it goes in this folder. And then lastly, the home note. We'll take a look here. And I've renamed this Effective OS just because I like that name scheme. I know lots of people are using it, but I think it makes a lot of sense. But this is the place for my high-level guidance, thoughts, and works in progress on a variety of topics, primarily around community, marketing, remote work, note-taking, and leisure. And I forgot to note in there productivity as well, because that's a big aspect of what I take notes on. So I have important tags up here, 4 really. These are just serves as launch points to search for them. Permanent, literature, inbox, and to do. Permanent, the tag is for crafted permanent notes. Literature are raw note thoughts on consumed content. These are the restated ideas that I have consumed from others. Inbox are notes that have not yet been processed. This is mainly for notes that come in via Readwise. So highlights that I'm taking from external materials get tagged automatically with inbox when they're created inside of the Readwise folder. And then to do, that tag is for permanent notes or other notes that need further work. We'll get into tags a little bit further in a second. Current interesting notes in the vault is just a section on an area where I am actively working on these notes very heavily. So the holistic productivity map of content and the developing productivity synthesis, those are heavily related to one another. I've had lots of thoughts about how do I effectively work? How do I construct a productivity system in the context of personal knowledge management? How do I make this in a way that works top down for me? I've done videos here on the channel about the VST approach, which is an idea that I've had, and I'm reframing that, repackaging that in a way that's a little bit more digestible. More to come on that in the future. Then 2022 job hunt. I'm on the hunt for a new job right now. And so that is a main component of the work that I'm doing here. There are note launch pads, which is the journal map of content, writing map of content, and notes map of content. You can see that these kind of correspond with folders that I have over here. We'll click into the notes one real quick so you can see this. I have a link up to the main note where I was just coming from, and then some jump off points from here into different areas of my notes. One of the most fleshed out ones is the marketing map of content, because I've spent a lot of time over the last year learning marketing. And you can see that I have a variety of different maps of content here, and then specific articles that are related to marketing in general. So I have a map of content for advertising, blogging, community marketing, content marketing, so on and so forth. The marketing seminar, which is a course that I did this last year. If we click into here, you can see now that I have all of these notes linked directly into here, and some main core ideas that I pulled out of the course. But this was probably one of the most effective ways that I've been able to organize notes, especially by topic area. If there's a topic area that I want to dive into, I create a new map of content for that, and then I'll link literature notes off of that. And then if I spin permanent notes, then sometimes those will get elevated up into a map of content because those are the core ideas that I'm seeing and finding. So if we look here at maybe community marketing, I have a couple of articles here. I also have a conference that I attended. Community marketing, why building a community around brand fuels growth. Now, I will say that this does not take into consideration articles that I've read and highlighted through Readwise's reader feature, which is in beta. Those end up in the Readwise folder and oftentimes are not directly linked into a map of content. That is a process thing that I need to get sorted out myself. But enough of that. We're going to head back home. The last thing here is productivity launch pads. I've got a vision board here that I'm working on as part of this life management. This uses Kanban. I'll give you a little sneak preview of this, but basically it gives me a top-down view of all the things going on in my life, where I'm at right now, my theme for the year, my wheel of life state, my objectives and key results that I'm focusing on at the immediate moment, and then launch pads to go a little bit deeper into each one of those areas. Again, more to come on this. From here, let's take a look at tags. I already showed the 4 most important tags of the vault here, but again, we have literature, which is at the top, and I have a number of sub tags. Articles, book, articles. That's helpful to have a duplicate of that. I got to fix that. Video, sermon, books, podcast, quote, tweets, course, TV, webinar. I believe this comes from the Readwise extension. I've got to fix that because I probably just put it in incorrectly when I edited my Readwise template. Journal has a number of different entries there. Permanent, inbox, kind. This is another interesting one. Again, my philosophy around tagging is to show what kind of a note is versus a topic area. I think it's a lot easier to tag notes in that way and then use linking and maps of content to show topic area. It's a lot more flexible. But kind is a way that I denote what kind of a note it is in my vault. These are more relating to the productivity aspects that I do in my vault. We've got annual review, seasonal review, meetings, projects, OKRs, themes, strategic plans, and so on. Task is one that's hanging out in my vault a little bit from some previous task experiments that I was doing. To do, we covered writing, just signifying that a note is a piece of writing, songwriting, which I have some songs that I like to noodle on here and there in the vault. And then revisit are just notes that I want to make sure that I come back to at some point in the time. It doesn't necessarily have a to-do tied with it, but maybe there's an idea in there that I want to make sure that I draw my attention to. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the high-level PKM process that I use for interacting with this vault and creating things from it. I'll just create a new note here, and we will write it out. I tend to split PKM into 3 phases. First, learning. Then second, thinking. And then third, creating. In my mind, learning is all the information that you're ingesting, you're taking from outside and you're processing. Thinking is the process where you are connecting those ideas to other ideas that you've already learned. And then creating is when you're taking those ideas and you're making something from it. Compared to some of other philosophies that I have seen over the course of years, to me, this is a much more nebulous process than it is a flow through things. It's more of a cycle that continuously happens. You're constantly learning things, connecting new ideas, and then making things from them. Now, I will say on the creating aspect of things, this doesn't necessarily mean creating a product or a video, a course, or a tweet even. This can be making a report for your job. It can be something as simple as changing the way that you think and act as a result of the information that you have consumed. So how do I do learning inside of this Obsidian Vault and the process? Well, the number one way is I use Kindle into Readwise, and that goes into Obsidian. I find this to be the most seamless and effective way to handle basically consuming information externally and getting it into my vault. I don't have to think about it. It just gets into my vault after I've highlighted things and after I've read them or consumed them. So reading books on Kindle, highlighting there, sometimes I'll add notes right into the Kindle book, or into the Kindle highlight rather. It'll go into Readwise, which I review those highlights using the daily review feature in Readwise every single day. And then those all end up in Obsidian. And if you haven't checked out my Think With Me Thursday live streams, I'll put a link up here in the corner, this side, so that you can see the history of those. And if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel yet at youtube.com/effectiveco, if you're watching this from the course, do so you can get access to those live streams as well. But the other way that I learn things is I'll maybe watch a YouTube video or listen to a podcast, either capture it on my phone on a piece of paper or directly into Obsidian. You saw a lot of this with the maps of content work that we looked at already. What I generally do for directly capturing into Obsidian is I'll use my literature note template, which I will pull up really quick for you. And again, it's very simple. I'll usually just append literature, book, or whatever there under tags. And then I'll link an author, a couple different topic areas that's relevant to, and a link. If it's a YouTube video, I'll just share the embed of the YouTube video so that it renders right here in the vault. And then I'll just take notes on it directly below this. It's a really helpful, quick way to do it if I'm sitting down and wanting to actively take notes on something. Sometimes I'll do this for conference talks as well too, if I'm sitting in person wanting to take notes. As terms of thinking, so that's how I get information into my vault, but as in terms of thinking, there are a few different ways that I do things. One I mentioned is Think With Me Thursday. I love to sit down live on stream with you to go through the highlights of the books that I have and then just verbally process them. We'll take notes, we'll talk out ideas, we'll kind of talk and ask questions and just kind of flesh it all out together. It's a really helpful way for me to think and connect ideas. Sometimes I'll also do progressive summarization, which means I'm going through, I'm highlighting highlights that I've already done. I'm bolding things that I've already highlighted that I want to call out further. Sometimes I'll condense information into different notes below it if I haven't done that already, or I will also create permanent notes. So when I create permanent notes, I'm basically taking a core idea from something and completely fleshing it out in my own words, trying to contextualize it in the midst of other notes that I have in my vault. Sometimes this results in one permanent note, sometimes it results in 15. It just depends on how granular and detailed I need to get to effectively demonstrate this idea in a note. If it's already a small idea, usually it's one note, but if it's a big idea, sometimes it connects up to multiple different notes over the course of time. Generally, when I'm creating things from here, again, this is just a cycle that happens. I'm thinking and learning and creating just about every single day and in different ways, but the primary external ways you're going to see me create are sharing ideas in live streams. If you notice a recurring theme here, going live is something that I find really helpful for me to go through the PKM process. Tweets or community posts on YouTube, products, which I'm working on a few right now, and then videos, and then also just general changes to how I think through things, big picture ideas. Again, this idea of the VST approach came through a lot of processing on things that I have learned in the past about productivity, both from personal experience and from watching what has worked and not worked. So in closing today, I wanted to talk through 3 big lessons that I've learned committing to a PKM process and workflow. The first of which being that PKM is messy. It sure is. And the perfectionist in me, the person who wants to have everything nicely and neatly organized, even though I definitely don't always do that in my life, but the perfectionist in me wants to have my vault look tidy and neat so that I know where everything is at and how it's connected together and I don't lose anything. Well, the truth is, that's nearly impossible to accomplish with a PKM setup, especially early on. You're going to have things that are linked all over the place. You're going to have notes all over the place. You're going to have a big long list of notes. You're not necessarily going to know how to organize it. And that's okay. Instead of fighting the messiness of PKM, embrace it. It doesn't have to be ugly, but it can be a little bit unwieldy to deal with to start with. Because what's happening is that your brain is getting the information out that it's concerned with, and then you're learning to make connections with that. And so if you can embrace having a bit of a messy PKM system for a little while, but just continue to engage with it, you're still going to get the value out of it. And that leads me into the second point that I have here from PKM lessons, and that is that your brain is what's making the connections. Do not put the onus on your tool to make connections for you. I know this is a major drawback or point criticism that people have had of the tools for thought or PKM space, whatever we're calling it these days, is that we often put this pressure on our tools to make the connections for us. Backlinking and unlinked mentions are a great way to see how some ideas might be connected, but you're the one making the connections in your head. Your brain is the one connecting the ideas, not your tool. Your tool is merely an external thought workspace. So think about that. Use your tool as a place to process externally and connect ideas together externally, but remember that your brain is the place where those connections happen, meaning the work that you're doing in your PKM process doesn't necessarily mean it's translating into output in your vault. Sometimes it's the fact that you're actively pursuing learning and connecting ideas together means that your brain's doing stuff in the background without even touching a software like Obsidian or Roam Research. And third, on a more tactical level, the combination of maps of content and folders together allows for a very flexible organization strategy. I do love the idea of how I've pulled together in my vault different buckets for different areas of notes that I want to track, but then organizing those notes using maps of content. It allows them to stay grouped together in a loose fashion, but then organized in a way that's not limited to just one folder. A note can be a part of multiple maps of content. Well, that wraps things up for this 2022 Obsidian workflow and setup video. I hope you found some helpful nuggets in here to maybe adopt inside of your own system. But remember, you don't have to copy my system. Find the system that works for you. And if you haven't signed up for the Obsidian Made Simple course yet, be sure to head on over to obsidianmadesimple.com and sign up today. There's a lot of awesome resources in there if you're interested in going deep with Obsidian. Again, my name is Justin with Effective. Thanks for watching this video. I hope to catch you in the next one or maybe on one of our weekly Think With Me Thursday live streams. Until then, though, stay effective.